Just going to pause that board. We'll get this kicked off. We are so excited to welcome you to our last free webinar of the year 2023, but certainly a jam-packed informational webinar with ProWritingAid. I'm Alexa Bigwharf. For everyone who is brand new to our webinar series, I'm the host of the Women in Publishing Summit, and I have with me today Hayley Milliman from ProWritingAid. So ProWritingAid is a tool that I have been using. I was trying to think before this webinar how many years ago that I bought it. It has to have been at least 8 years ago. I don't know, more than 5 years ago for sure. Bought it a long time ago and have used it in editing my books, blog posts, emails. When you get the online plugin, it will edit pretty much everything that you are doing. Give you advice for how to improve your writing. But for me as an author, I've just loved all the many tools that it gives you so that you can really take a look at your writing. For me, the biggest revelation was how many times I repeat words. And for everybody who's been a beta reader on my books, or even like we didn't even get rid of all of the repeated words by the time 4 Days in Paris was published, but I tend to like to use the same words. And there's a tool that will let you know how many times you've used each word, which is so helpful when you're going through. But while we all advocate working with a live, real person editor, tools like this can help you improve your draft so much to save you time and money when you're going through the editing process. So I am so happy with the tool, use it all the time, promote it all the time, and we're just so happy to have ProWritingAid as a continuing sponsor this year, because to me it's one of the tools that you absolutely must have in your toolbox as you are writing your books or whatever it is that you are writing. So Hayley, I am going to just do one more quick thing here, and that is to remind everybody the captions are on. You should be able, if you need those, you can enable those. We do have a Q&A box, as this is a webinar. So as your questions come up, please use the Q&A box so that they don't get lost in the chat. And at the end of Hayley's presentation, she will get to all of those questions for you. So if you don't have any questions for me, Hayley, thank you again so much for your support and for being here. And I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks so much, Alexa. I was just thinking, yeah, you've been here as long as I've been with ProWritingAid, which has been at least 6 years now. So it's been a long time. Yeah. All right. I will share my screen and we will jump in. So hello, everybody. My name is Hayley Milliman. I am here today to talk to you about ProWritingAid, but more than that, I'm here to talk to you about how to line edit for clarity, no matter what you are writing. So as I mentioned, my name is Hayley and I am the head of education at ProWritingAid, which means my job is basically to come and talk to writers like you, as well as writers all around the world about how to improve their writing and just share their stories with more confidence. So today we're going to talk about 3 things. First, I'm going to talk to you about why we're talking about clarity in the first place. I think clarity is the most important goal for all writers, and I'm going to talk a bit about why I think that. Next, we're going to dive into 5 key principles that will help make your writing more clear when you're line editing. And as I talk about those principles, I'm going to talk to you about how to apply them using ProWritingAid, but I'm also going to talk to you about how to apply them if you don't have ProWritingAid. So either way, regardless of whether or not you have the software, you'll walk away with an understanding of what these principles are, and then, as I mentioned, how to apply them into your document to make your writing more effective. All right, so let's dive in. So as I said, I believe that clarity is an essential part of storytelling. And this is because if your writing is not clear, you're not going to engage your readers in your work. As writers, I believe that our main job is to get our meaning across clearly and effectively. So if our writing is too complicated or too hard to follow for our audience, we're not doing our job. And as writers, we tend to spend a lot of time thinking about pieces like our character development or the argument that we're trying to make, or whether or not we're telling a story in a compelling way. We think about that at kind of the macro level, but we never really zoom in, or we don't zoom in until later into the micro level and think about how are our sentences actually set up to convey that meaning. And often, again, when we're focused so much on the bigger picture aspects of our story, our characters, or the argument that we're trying to make, or the point that we're trying to get across, then we're again not focusing on whether or not we're actually conveying those ideas in a way our audience can understand. And so I think clarity is so important because you've done all of that work thinking about these great ideas, coming up with these great stories or these great theses. And it's really important to make sure that your sentences are set up so your readers can actually engage with that content. If our writing is unclear, then our readers are going to spend more time trying to figure out or interpret what we're saying than actually engaging with those ideas itself. And one of the things that's really kind of paramount to good writing is understanding that good writing is going to prioritize the idea over showing off fancy, confusing language. So the best writing is always the writing that's going to get your meaning across to your target audience in the clearest and most effective way, rather than the writing that's showing off, your ability with a thesaurus. Now, before we get any further, I want to really clearly define what I'm talking about when I'm talking about clarity. So when I'm talking about clarity, I'm talking about three things. First, how easy your writing is to understand. Now, I want to pause there and say how easy your writing is to understand is a sliding scale. So what's easy for one reader is going to be different than another. And for each of us on this call who are writing different types of books or different types of documents and have different types of audiences, what is easy for one audience is not going to be easy for another. So I'm not coming to you today and saying that clarity means that every single one of us have to write at a 7th grade reading level or a 6th grade reading level. What I am saying is that we need to understand who our audiences are so that our work and our ideas are easy to understand for that particular audience. So first, clarity is how easy your writing is to understand. The second is whether or not your sentences are set up in a reader-focused way. And again, we really want to hone in on reader-focused here. It matters who your readers are so that you can understand whether or not your sentences are set up for them. What's going to be easy and clear and reader-focused for a science fiction reader is different than a romance reader. So it really depends on who your readers are to understand if you're setting up your sentences for them or not. And then the final thing about clarity is that it's about adding rich and specific language that will enhance your reader's understanding. So often when I come in and talk about clarity, people worry that I'm talking about, removing all of the interesting language or making all writing sound the same, but actually it could not be further from the truth. Good, clear writing does have rich and specific language, but it's prioritizing when to use that over when to communicate ideas effectively. And we'll talk more about that as we get further into the presentation. So that's what clarity is. On the other hand, clarity has nothing to do with how simple or juvenile the ideas in your writing are. So you can have incredibly clear, clear, complex adult ideas with simple language. It has nothing to do with ideas. So the language is separate from the ideas. Language is a vehicle kind of used to convey those ideas. So you can have really complex adult complicated ideas while still having clear language to explain them. And then again, it has absolutely nothing to do with whether or not your prose is engaging, unique, and exciting. So you can sound like yourself, you can use interesting words, you can be very engaging while still being clear. So now that we know what clarity is and isn't, how do we get it? Clarity starts at the sentence level. And I want you to think about sentences like mini movies. A sentence in many ways is a complete story in itself. And again, you can kind of think about it as a mini movie playing in your reader's head. So if I say the sentence, Hayley plays football, you can close your eyes and picture me playing football. That is a complete mini movie in itself. When you have a clear sentence, a clear mini movie, then you're going to be able to clearly convey your ideas and create that accurate picture for your readers. Now, we start at the sentence level because we cannot get to clear stories if we don't have clear sentences. When you have clear sentences, you'll then have clear paragraphs. And when you have clear paragraphs, you'll then have clear stories. So when we're focusing on clarity, we need to zoom into each individual sentence to make sure that sequence of mini movies is accurate for our readers. So how do we get there? How do we get to clear sentences? We're going to cover 5 key principles today that will help make your sentences more clear. And as I mentioned at the top, I'm going to talk about these principles, what they are, how they make your sentences more effective, and then also how you can create the sentence clarity using ProWritingAid, though I will also talk about how to create and edit for clarity if you don't have ProWritingAid either, so you can have both options. Okay, let's get to principle 1. So our first principle of clarity is to make subjects the stars of your sentence. So subjects are, as I said, the stars of your sentence. They're the main actors. They are who is doing the action in your sentence, and it's important to prioritize your sentences to set them up that way. If you have written a sentence with passive voice, that means that you are not making the subject the star of your sentence. You're making the object of the sentence that star. It's taking power away from your sentence and away from your subject and giving it to the object, which creates an unclear experience from your reader. So we have an example of a passive voice sentence here. The present was opened by Jane. In this sentence, the object, the present, shows up before the subject, the person doing the action, so Jane in this instance. And it kind of shows up the way that this picture is. So if we go back to that principle of the mini movie where the sentence is, or where a sentence is a mini movie playing, if we stretched out this sentence, the present was opened by Jane, it would show up kind of like this image, right? Your reader would have the present pop up first, and then Jane would pop up in the background because the way the sentence is structured presents the object, the thing that's being acted upon before the sentence. Now, in a very, very simple sentence like this, it's not going to be unclear what's happening or who's doing the action. But as our sentences get more complex and as our documents get more complex, passive voice is often too wordy and too confusing and can negatively affect readers. So again, in a very simple sentence, it won't get in the way of understanding, but the more complex your document, the more complex your ideas, the more passive voice creates just an overly wordy and overly confusing experience for your readers. But all of that being said is actually not grammatically incorrect. So you can choose to use passive voice in your writing. It's just important to make that as a specific choice rather than something that just kind of happens to you. For a lot of us as writers, passive voice is a bad habit or is something that we just have and just put into our writing. And so what I'm arguing here is to intentionally use passive voice when it will add something to your writing and to go through when you're line editing and remove instances of passive voice that aren't adding anything to what you're trying to say. So I recommend using passive voice in these 3 instances. First, you can use passive voice if the subject of your sentence is unknown. So in a sentence like Stonehenge was built around 5,000 years ago, we don't know who built it, so it's okay to have passive voice. It's okay to have an unclear actor because there is not a clear actor. We don't have an action. We don't have someone that we can put in there. The next is if subject is irrelevant. So for instance, in the sentence, the Time and Life building was constructed in 1959 and changed the skyline. The construction was constructed is a passive construction. It's okay in this instance because the whole point of this sentence is about how the building changed the skyline, not about who constructed it. So it's irrelevant to this. You also can use passive voice if you're trying to make a deliberate choice. So we'll often see this in sentences where you're trying to increase suspense. It also often happens in newspaper headlines. So a sentence like Mary realized a suspicious package had been left on her door. We don't know who left the package. Mary doesn't know. We're trying to increase the suspense. So we have the passive construction here. You'll see this, as I mentioned, a lot in newspaper headlines. So something like woman was murdered at home. It doesn't tell you who murdered her because they want you to click into the article and see that, right? So they're purposely using passive voice in this point to encourage you to take a particular action. So you can use passive voice in these 3 instances because, again, it's either irrelevant, unknown, or you're making a deliberate choice to increase reader suspense. If not one of these options, I would recommend removing passive voice from your writing because it's not inherently adding anything and could, in theory, detract from your writer. So if you have an instance of passive voice in your writing, what can you do? You can fix passive voice by basically finding the sentence that a passive construction exists in and taking the subject of the sentence and moving that to the front. So instead of the present was opened by Jane, we take the person who is doing the action, Jane, and move her to the front. Jane opens the present. That mini movie now has Jane pop into the movie first. The present pops in later, as we see with our image, which again now shows us, shows the correct action with the doer coming first. So as I mentioned, the ways that you can fix this are first to look for passive constructions. Often the word by is a good flag that you have a passive sentence construction. So the present was opened by Jane, or even if you don't have the word by, if the word by would help answer who did this, that's usually an instance where you have passive voice. You could also look for to be plus verbs, so things like was opened. Either of those are usually good signifiers that you have passive voice. And once you've found them, again, the goal is to flip the sentence so that the doer, the actor, comes first. So instead of the present was opened by Jane, we have Jane opens the present. The sentence becomes shorter, clearer, and more to the point. And again, as the sentence becomes more complex, your readers are going to be able to more clearly engage with those ideas. So that's how you would fix it by yourself. I'll also show you how to fix it with ProWritingAid briefly. So I have ProWritingAid pulled up here, and I'll have more time to kind of go through ProWritingAid at the end. But I have it pulled up here, and I am in our real-time report, which shows a number of different types of suggestions, amongst them passive voice. So passive voice suggestions are highlighted here in purple. And when you'll see passive voice suggestions within ProWritingAid, there's a couple things that will happen. First, you could highlight it, and in certain instances, it will just highlight the passive verb for you. And then you can either change the sentence if you'd like to, or you can decide that you were intentionally having this passive construction here and leave it in. Sometimes it might suggest a number of quick changes that you can just implement with the touch of a button because it's a fairly non-complex sentence. Or if it's a more complex sentence like this one, you can hit this button to suggest rephrases. It will suggest a number of different rephrases for the entire sentence for you. So there's a bunch of different ways you can kind of scale up how much you'd like the tool to help you based on what your goals as a writer are. I know a lot of writers have a lot of strong feelings about using technology to support their writing, which is one of the reasons I really like ProWritingAid, because again, it can scale up for you. So the first level is just giving you information. So it's just identifying these places in your writing where you might want to make improvements, and then you can make them yourself. Or it can go all the way into suggesting improvements that you can apply for you, depending on your comfort level with that. But at the very baseline level, it just helps you automatically find a lot of these places that you can make changes without you having to do that work yourself. Okay, our second principle for clarity is to reduce glue words. So in good writing, you want to prioritize working words over glue words. Now, what do those mean? So working words are words that contain a sentence's most essential information. Think your nouns, verbs, adjectives. You cannot change them or the meaning of the sentence will change. So if we take my mini movie sentence before Hayley plays football, and I change that to Hayley plays the flute, the meaning of the sentence will change. If I change it from Hayley plays football to Alexa plays football, the meaning of the sentence will change. So those are working words. They're the words that you cannot change, or the meaning of the sentence is going to change itself. Glue words, on the other hand, are all of the other words. These are the words that tend to make the essential pieces of the sentence stick together. So think adjectives, articles, conjunctions. Words that are necessary for a clear sentence, but often we can reduce, remove, or replace them to make the sentence stronger. And before I go to the next slide, Siobhan, I saw your question in the comment. Can you just make sure that you put that in the Q&A so I don't lose it and we can get to it at the end? So again, two types of words in each sentence: working words, essential information, nouns, verbs, adjectives; glue words, words that make it all stick together that we could reduce, remove, or replace to make the sentence more effective. So if you have too many glue words in your sentence, it's going to become sticky. And a sticky sentence is a negative experience for readers because it's overly long, it's overly confusing, and it's just hiding the meaning. So let's take a look at a sticky sentence. Dave walked over into the backyard of the school in order to see if there was a new bicycle that he could use in class. I would love for you to tell me in the chat, what are the working words in this sentence? So remember, working words are the words that contain the essential information. You cannot change them or the meaning of the sentence will change. So I'll give you a few seconds to just type in the chat, what are the working words? We'll see if they match what I've identified. Dave, bicycle. Yep. Dave, class. Yep. Walked, backyard, backyard. Walked, school, bicycle, class. Yeah, great. Looks like a lot of us have the same ones. So here's what I highlighted. Dave walked, backyard, school, new bicycle, use, class, right? So if I change Dave to Hayley, sentence would change. Change walk to ice skated, the sentence would change. School to hospital, the sentence would change. Bicycle to roller skates, it would change. Class to, extracurricular program or, play, it would change, right? So all of these are the words that are the essential information of the sentence. You can see that our proportion here is all off, right? So we've got a few highlighted working words in yellow, but we have all of these additional words here that are glue words. They're not really doing anything. They're just making the sentence stick together. We could do work to reduce, remove, or replace them, and the sentence will still make sense. It'll just be clearer and more effective. So when you have a sentence like this where the balance is off, the sentence becomes sticky. We want to make sure we have more glue words than working, or excuse me, not more glue, more working words than glue words. When the percentage is backwards like this, again, the sentence is overly confusing for our reader. The beauty of this is that the beauty and the challenge is that there's not one way to fix a sticky sentence. So I say beauty and challenge because challenge, there's not one way. I can't just tell you to come in and fix it the same way we did for passive voice. But the beauty of this is that fixing sticky sentences retains your voice as a writer because there's not just one way to do it. You can do it in so many different ways depending on your meaning as a writer and how you would like to convey that information. So if we come back to this sentence, I'd love for us to try this ourselves and see how many versions we can come up with. So if we go back to our sticky sentence, Dave walked over into the backyard of the school in order to see if there was a new bicycle that he could use in his class. I'll give you about 30 seconds. Put in the chat and try to rewrite this sentence. So try to fix it to remove some of that filler so that you're saying the same thing and getting the same information across. You're just not using all of these sticky words to get that through. See what we come up with. So Dave walked to the schoolyard to find him a new bicycle for class. Walking to the school's backyard, Dave looked for a bicycle he could use in class. Dave scanned the schoolyard for a bike to steal. Dave walked to the school's backyard to find a new bicycle to use in class. Dave wandered into the backyard, hoping to see a new bicycle for class. Yeah, this is perfect. I came up with Dave checked the school's backyard for a new bicycle to use in class, but we've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have about 12 different versions of this, and every single one of ours are different. So this is exactly what I mean with sticky sentences. There's not one way to fix it, but every single sentence that we just came up with is stronger than that original. And every single one is also taking into account our intent as authors. So for instance, what did somebody say? So Beth had Dave scan the schoolyard for a bike to steal. So for Beth, Dave is looking for something to steal, right? So it's changing the meaning there a little bit, but that's okay because it's to Beth's point as the author. So she's conveying that meaning more clearly and effectively, right? So as the author, you can decide what you are trying to say. And then again, there are so many different ways that you can come and fix these sentences to better meet your authorial intent. So how do you fix this yourself without ProWritingAid? The first thing is to look for sticky sentences. I say look for overly long. Overly long is subjective, but depending on what you're writing, I would say anything over 18 words is probably too long. Again, if you're working on academic writing, that's a bit fuzzier. If you're working on, kid lit or something for children, it's probably 10 words. But again, overall, if you're working on general content for adults, anything over 18 words is probably too long. It's usually a good indication that you've got a lot of sticky words in there. So look for an overly long sentence. The next thing you want to do is look for prepositions. Look for your glue words. So words like prepositions, conjunctions, articles are often glue words. You could also do it the opposite way that we did and identify your working words first and then see what's glue that way. So either way, you want to identify your percentage of glue versus working. And then you just want to rewrite the sentence reducing glue words. And remember, as you're going into that rewriting, there's not one way to fix it. How you fix it will depend on your intent as the writer. So you could try multiple different ways. Now, ProWritingAid has a lot of ways to fix this itself. So first, again, I'm here in the real-time checker. Here on the right-hand side, I have our goals sidebar, and one of the pieces on the goals sidebar is the glue index. The glue index looks at your overall percentage of sticky sentences, of glue words to working words within your document. So the goal for your document is to have 40% or less glue words. So you can see that this one is just outside of that glue percentage. We have a little over 40%. We've got 46% glue words in this document. Now you can look at this, it gives you a good overview snapshot and you can say, I'm pretty close, I might leave it, or you can click in and go to the sticky sentences report itself if you decide that you want to fix it. Now, what the report does is it identifies sticky sentences, so sentences with 60% or higher glue words, and then it also identifies semi-sticky, which have 40 to 60% glue words, so you can see exactly which sentences are creating the problem within your document. Now, once you go to the sentences, you can highlight a single sentence. It will tell you what the percentage of glue words is for that particular sentence and what the glue words are. And then just like I said before, you can scale up from there. So it'll identify the sticky sentences for you. It'll do the work of finding the glue words. And then depending on your comfort level with using tools like this, you can either rewrite it yourself or you can have it suggest rephrases of the sentence without those glue words for you. So it's really up to you on how you would like to use it, but I find it really useful because again, it's doing a lot of that manual work for me of finding the problematic sentences, telling me what the problems with them are, and then I can either decide if I want to implement a suggestion or just ignore it, or if I want to implement it myself, or if then again want to use the tool to suggest rephrases of the writing for me. All right. Our third principle of clarity is to use powerful verbs. So just like we talked about making our subjects the stars, we also need to make sure we are prioritizing verbs because verbs are the engines of our writing that propel it forward. But many writers often use weak verbs that hide our meaning or take a lot of the power away from the statements that we are trying to make. So one of the ways that writers do this is through a hidden verb, which is something called a nominalization. A nominalization is when you hide a powerful verb in favor of a less powerful verb plus noun construction. So what we have highlighted here is an example of a nominalization. Instead of saying, we will announce the winner on Friday, you say, we will make an announcement of the winner on Friday. This is really common in things like decision. Instead of saying, I'll decide on Friday, I will make a decision on Friday. You're using more words and taking the power away from the action word, away from the engine word of decision, and giving it to a less powerful verb called make. Now, again, this is not grammatically incorrect, but many writers rely on this, whether that's to hide the power of the words or just through bad habit, which again takes away the power from those engines that are powering things, powering your sentences forward. We'll also see writers tend to use weak words by adding adverbs to make a weak verb more clear. So saying something like, I ran quickly towards the bus instead of saying I dashed. So you're using a kind of lazy, weaker verb plus an adverb to say what you really mean, instead of just making it clear by using a powerful verb in the first place. So your goal is to let your verbs power your writing and to use them to strongly explain what you mean where it's appropriate. So for instance, in that nominalization, you want to take away that kind of helping verb of something like make and go back into the strong verb of announcing the winner on Friday. Now, this is going to depend again on your intent as the author. So sometimes if you're communicating in a business decision or in a business context, maybe you don't want to use a really powerful verb and you want to hide the meaning of it because you're trying to soften the blow of what you're delivering. The goal is to understand what your habits are as a writer and again make conscious choices to either power or take power away from your verbs rather than to again let it happen through kind of a bad habit, if that makes sense. So you want to make sure you're showing your powerful verbs and then also using words that say what you mean. So instead of ran quickly or talked softly, whispered or dashed. Again, verbs that are going to create that kind of evocative imagery for your writers or for your readers so they understand what you're trying to say. So you want to look for places in your writing where you have found that weaker verb plus noun construction, or places where you've added adverbs, and replace those within your writing to help say what you mean. Now, ProWritingAid has a number of different ways to fix this. So if I come back into my real-time checker, one of the things that the real-time checker does is looks for nominalizations. So if I actually, I'm not sure. Yeah, made the decision here, it'll help me find that nominalization and correct it to, again, remove the made the decision to update to just decided to update. It's a clear, more evocative, and stronger way to say what we mean without, again, hiding the verb behind something else. All right, our fourth principle is on targeting the correct readability. And I know that somebody had a question on this in the Q&A. So we'll talk about readability now. So audiences prefer works that are easy to read. Most mass market fiction is written at a 7th grade reading level, which means that it's written for, excuse me, students who are around 12 years old to be able to understand. Now, as we'll get into in just a second, readability has nothing to do with the complexity of ideas or the adultness, if that's a word, of ideas. It has to do with how the language is set up. But overall, audiences tend to prefer works that are easy to read. So particularly if they're engaging with fiction, they're not wanting to have to open a dictionary or a thesaurus to kind of move through. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. One thing. Okay, so back. So audiences prefer works that are easy to read. Again, they're going to want to work with content that allows them to engage with the ideas, not have to whip out a dictionary to understand what you're trying to say. So what does that mean in terms of readability? First is that readability prioritizes your work so that the ideas are the stars. A readable document, again, regardless of what you're writing, whether it's fiction, memoir, business book, etc., lets the ideas shine. Your goal is to have your audience engage with the ideas inherent in your work and not with the language itself. The second thing that means is that you have to choose your words carefully. One of the things that will increase readability is word choice. So if you're choosing really complicated words, it will often make your readability higher. Now, if you're trying to target a particular readability level, you do not have to forego all interesting words. You just need to be choosy about what they are. And let me tell you a little story to kind of explain that. So earlier in my career, I was working as a teacher and I was writing assessments for students. And I was writing particularly social studies and science assessments. And when you're writing social studies and science assessments, you often have a lot of complicated language in the sentences itself. So words like photosynthesis or something like that. A word like photosynthesis is really complicated, and when you're writing an assessment for a student, you really have to be careful at the reading level that it's at to make sure that you're not making the assessment unnecessarily complicated for a student. So if I was trying to write an assessment about photosynthesis for my students at the 5th grade reading level, I could use the word photosynthesis. I just had to make sure everything around it was very simple. So that's what I mean when choosing your words carefully. You don't need to forego everything interesting or everything related to your topic. You just need to be choosy. So if there are specific words that are have meaning for your audience, keep those while using simple words and simple constructions around it. So it's not about getting rid of everything. It's just about being choosy about where you use interesting words and constructions. And how you choose what to make as interesting or not depends on your audience. So every single audience is different, and you need to consider yours when targeting appropriate readability and making those types of choices. So again, if you're writing something like science fiction, maybe you want to spend your interesting words, so to speak, on things like, describing intergalactic space travel or, the complexities of the machine people are using to get from one planet to another. However, if you're in romance, your readers probably won't want to engage with that. So it really depends on who your audience is and how you can consider them when you're trying to target the appropriate readability. Readability, on the other hand, has nothing to do with whether or not your prose is boring. So again, often people, when I say that readability, you're targeting like a 12-year-old reading level, people will get a little nervous and say, oh, but my book isn't for 12-year-olds. Again, readability is very separate from who the work is appropriate for. So it has nothing to do with whether your prose is boring. So again, you can use unique words and structures. You just need to make sure that you're doing it consciously and choosing when you're using those structures appropriately. Has nothing also to do with ideas in your language. It does not mean that your work is appropriate for 12-year-olds. It, however, means that a 12-year-old could pick it up and engage with this. Again, it's very different. It's not appropriate for, it just means that they could understand. And again, if you come back to the audience's goal is to understand the ideas without too much lift on their part. So we want to make sure that you have clear language. And I would actually also argue that the more complicated and complex your ideas are, the more they deserve clear language that your audience can understand what you mean and that your intent is really clear. So ideas are very, very separate from readability. You could have really adult work that's still talked about using prose that's appropriate for a 12-year-old, for a readability level that makes sense for your audience. So the way to understand this is to use something called a readability score. So a readability score predicts who will be able to read your writing. It basically looks at your writing and says, okay, a 12-year-old could read this or a 10-year-old could. And there are many, many different types to choose from. There's something like called Dale Shaw, there's Flesch Kincaid. There's all of these different readability scores. Basically, all they do is just analyze your text and spit back out to you what age group of students could be able to read this so that you can make that choice. There's many different types to choose from. The good news is that there are a lot of different free tools like this available in Word or just online at all. Now, if you run your work through a readability calculator like that and you find that it's too high, there are 4 things that you can start with to try to bring that score down a bit. The first is to choose an easier vocabulary. So vocabulary is one of the things that increases a readability score. So that's one of the first levers that you can pull if you want to try to bring that down. The second thing that you can do is look at shortening your sentences. Longer sentences are more exhausting and complex for readers, so shorter sentences are going to bring the readability levels down. You can also look at removing any jargon or domain-specific language that's going to make the writing a little bit more alienating for folks or harder to understand. And then finally, you can use things like active voice, because again, if we remember back to the first principle, passive sentence constructions are often long and overly complicated. So going into active voice makes it a bit more effective. All right. So how can you fix this with ProWritingAid? So as I've shown you a couple ways, a lot of the suggestions in the real-time report relate to style and helping you improve that readability. The goal sidebar here will also tell you the readability grade for your document. Now, ProWritingAid allows you to choose your particular document type, so it'll change that readability target based on what you're writing. So it'll give you the appropriate readability target, and it will be a range for your particular document type, so you can see if you're in that or if you're without it. And then you can come into the readability report as well to break down paragraph by paragraph and see where you have more complex pieces or where you have less. Again, you can also then come into the style report and find specific ways to make some of those changes and make the writing more effective. Now, you can also highlight any sentence if you're looking to rephrase it. And you can shorten the sentences, you can expand them, you can make them sound a bit more fluent. Again, just depending on what your goals are here and how far you are away from that readability grade target that you have. All right. Okay, and our 5th principle is to choose specific words. So up until this point, we have talked all about different ways that you can simplify your writing and clarify it. Now we're going to talk about what you can add back in. So we want to make sure our work is not just clear, but it's also specific. You have to have your work be simple and specific in order for your readers to understand. If we come back to that idea of the mini movie, a mini movie is clear when it's simple and specific. If your words are too vague, it's going to lack the specificity your readers need, and so that mini movie is going to be inaccurate. So let's look at a really vague sentence to prove this point. Kate made some improvements to her cabin, and now it's worth more. I would love for you to tell me in the chat, what do you picture when Kate is making improvements to her cabin? And also, what does worth more mean? Diana says no idea. DM says no, can't tell which kind of improvements. Painted things, nothing. New countertops, remodeled her kitchen. Roof, landscaping, new kitchen in my head, painted the outside to add value. Again, we have so many ideas. Questions, what kind of cabin? Unsure. Again, there's nothing wrong with this sentence. This sentence is grammatically correct. We could put this into Microsoft Word and nothing would flag, but it means absolutely nothing, right? Like this sentence could mean absolutely anything. Again, oftentimes our writing is too vague. We're saying things that mean something to us, but that movie our readers are playing, it's not clear, right? So this sentence, well, again, grammatically correct, could mean absolutely anything. So as the writer, you're not doing a good job conveying your meaning because your readers, that mini movie could be playing absolutely anything. You need to make sure that you're providing a much more specific example for your readers. So instead of saying, Kate made some improvements, Kate replaced the bathroom suite, repainted the living room, and laid hardwood floors in her cabin, increasing its value by 10%. Now, some of us might have different ideas of like what the fixtures on the bathroom suite look like, or the color of the living room, or like what stain she has on the hardwood floors. But overall, this is getting so much closer to what Kate actually did, rather than the first sentence where, again, every single one of us could have done, totally different things depending on that. So again, the more specific that you are, the more clear your writing is going to be. Now, what I want to highlight here is that clarity does not always equal brevity. That second sentence was much longer than our first sentence, but it was much more clear. Now, one of the reasons it was much more clear is because there's a lot more working words in it. So that first sentence had a lot of glue words that did not contain essential information. We could reduce, remove, or replace them. But this second sentence, whilst longer, has many more working words. Could not replace bathroom suite with kitchen, appliances, or the meaning of the sentence would change. So it's not always about just being simple and shorter. You have to be simple and specific to get clear. When you have both of those things, so you have simple sentence constructions with specific language, then that movie is going to be accurate to what you're trying to say. So when you're trying to be more specific, the best way is to ask yourself, is the movie a reader playing in their head accurate to what I'm trying to show? Or to just share it with somebody else and say, what do you picture when I say this? And to see, am I doing a good job explaining this? Again, there's always going to be nuances in the movies that we all play in our heads, but you want to make sure that you're getting really, really close so that the nuances are in the details rather than in the overall meaning of what you're trying to say. And as I just described, ProWritingAid can help you fix this in a number of different ways. So where did it go? Our diction report here will help highlight all of the vague and abstract words in your writing, so you can find places where you're not saying what you mean, and it can suggest ways that you can help fix it and make your writing a bit more effective. Okay, so we have covered a whole lot today, but first we talked about why clarity is the most important goal, because we're trying to make our ideas the stars and get those across. We talked about 5 key principles to make your writing more clear. First is to reduce passive voice. The second is to eliminate glue words. Third is to make our verbs the stars of our writing. The fourth is to target the appropriate readability for our writing. And the fifth is to use specific language that says what we mean. And then we talked about how to make those principles more effective and apply them into your writing, either by yourself or with ProWritingAid. So I hope that you've enjoyed this. I will say, I think with Women in Publishing, we've got a 40% discount off of ProWritingAid annual and lifetime. If you would like to check that out, I'll put the link in the chat shortly. And yeah, let's dive into questions. Okay, I'm glad to hear that this presentation on clarity was very clear. That's always the goal with the presentation. Thanks, Alexa, for the link. Okay. So Donna asks, what's the average reader's level of comprehension? We touched on this a little bit, Donna, but yeah, it's usually around seventh grade reading level. So again, that's about a 12-year-old. That's typically what most mass market, like 6th to 7th grade, 11 to 12 is. DM, thank you so much for your compliments. Siobhan says, can you use ProWritingAid to write your entire story? I am using Scrivener to write. How can you integrate them? So ProWritingAid is not a story generator, so it will not it doesn't work like ChatGPT or pseudo-write or something like that, where you know, put in a prompt and it generates the whole story for you. There are ways, so our Sparks feature, which I'll show you here, will allow you to continue writing. So it can continue writing a couple sentences from this. Depending on how your goals as a writer, you could use this for ideation, but right now it's not a full story generator, and I don't know that it ever will be. I think our goal is always to enhance human creativity and provide tools, not to just generate the whole thing. In terms of integrating with Scrivener, there's a couple different ways. Our desktop app allows you to open a Scrivener Scriv file and make edits there and then save them, or you can use ProWritingAid Everywhere, which will show your edits directly within Scrivener itself. Yes, for everyone who's asked about replay or slides, there will be a replay, and I will send the slides to Alexa as well so that you can have those. Yes, Mary. So yeah, ProWritingAid does work with Scrivener. As I mentioned, both the desktop app and Everywhere allow you to use ProWritingAid directly in Scrivener. Can ProWritingAid be upgraded to do the same job as ChatGPT? So again, right now, ProWritingAid does not do any of the like large scale text generation, though some features like rephrase and Sparks, which allow you to rephrase certain sentences or continue writing, do very similar jobs to ChatGPT, some parts of ChatGPT, but it's not a full generation of a story, if that makes sense. We are doing a lot of work on how we can use those types of tools to help you with ideation, to help you break through writer's block, but it's not, you know, let's plug this in and get a whole chapter written. Does ProWritingAid have a way to keep stories in the same tense? This is an incredibly asked for feature. We have the Sparks function allows you to change sentences to rewrite them in the past or present tense. So you can do that with the Sparks feature. But that being said, I would not just like highlight the whole sentence or the whole document and change tense, because tense is so tricky. You know, some like dialogue will be past or present depending on where it is. So again, highlighting a sentence or a section with Sparks will help you rewrite what you would like to be in the same tense. But I would definitely not suggest just highlighting your whole document and changing the tense, because in fiction, there's going to be a lot of different ways or a lot of different tenses, even if your story's in past tense. Like I said, like dialogue or thoughts might be not in the past tense. Yes, ProWritingAid can be purchased month to month, yearly, or lifetime. Month to month is our highest cost per month, as if you're on the month to month. The lifetime 40% off deal is an incredibly good deal. So if you're able to, I would recommend going for that. I don't even know how long lifetime will exist, because it's a very, very good deal. But there's also month to month and yearly. The discount that I shared is good on the yearly or the lifetime. We don't discount month to month purchases. Okay, Jan asks, my book, No Exit Necessary, is a travel guide. When I use a word I don't know, I define it. That isn't dumbing down, is it? No, Jan, I think this is exactly what you need. You said the lake is endorheic. I don't know that word at all. So this is a great example of a definition. I think that's a perfect way to increase readability and have your readers understand what you're trying to say. Mandy says, my ProWritingAid isn't offering all the options. Mandy, the best way to do that would be to email hello@ProWritingAid.com. I am sensing that you probably aren't logged in using the premium version. That being said, also the versions look a little bit different depending on where you are. So email hello@ProWritingAid.com and they can make sure that you are all set up. All right, Kim, once my editor pointed out to me was that and everything should be in the right chronological order. Yeah, that's a really other great point. And Kim, this goes back to the idea of the mini movie, right? Like the movie of Jane tripping and falling her face after opening the door. If we slow that down, the door pops into frame way later, where actually you want the door, because it's causing the tripping and falling, to pop into that mini movie earlier. So that's a really great point. Tiana says, or Tiana, apologies, says that one of my weaknesses is repetitive words. Yes, me too. So ProWritingAid has a couple of reports for repetitive words. So repeats and echoes. So the repeats report first shows you all of the frequent 4, 3, and 2-word phrases. So you can just come and see all of the times you've used something. And then the echoes report tells you where you have close repeats. So repeats within a certain distance. And you can come into your settings and add and change like how frequently you want those repeats to be. So you could say, I would like it to actually only be within 100 characters. So you can like explain, increase or decrease that frequency depending on what you need. Yes, Tracy has a great question. My question is, there's so much that one can look at ProWritingAid. It's overwhelming. How can you strip it to the bare bones? Yes. So first of all, you can turn stuff off. So you can always turn real time on or off. I personally, as a creative writer myself, do not tell people to write it while writing. I don't turn it on until I'm ready to edit because it's so overwhelming. So my typical process is to keep it off until I'm ready to edit. Then I turn it on and I go straight to the goals first. I actually ignore everything else. I make sure my document type is right. And then I just look here and I see, where am I green? If I'm green, I can ignore it. And where am I orange? And orange, then I just work section by section and try to get this little tick mark closer to the goal. That's how I find is the most effective way to just keep it clear, and to keep us kind of keep me on track without getting overwhelmed. But I also will say, I definitely do not use, I don't use it when I'm writing for that exact reason. Cindy says, what about an adult romance novel that's evaluated at 4th grade readability? I think that's totally fine, Cindy. I like 6th and 7th grade is typically the ceiling. 4th, 5th, 3rd, all of that's fine. I think if you really are concerned, you can give it to a reader and see if they have any feedback, but it is not bad to have a very easy to read document in any way. And again, it has absolutely nothing to do with the complexity of ideas. So you could have some pretty spicy romance in there while still being a 4th grade readability, because that's about a sentence construction, not about the content of ideas. Diana asks, is Everywhere part of the subscription? Yes. So if you get Premium or Premium Pro, that includes all of the integration. So you can use ProWritingAid on the web, you can use it in Scrivener, you can use it in Chrome. It basically ProWritingAid, and then you get a bunch of different downloads so you can put it in your section where you would like it to be. Okay, I have trouble importing a full novel and saving the changes. So Donna, I would suggest going to hello@prowritingaid.com to check. You should be able to import a novel and then have it be broken down chapter by chapter to make it a bit easier. That being said, I personally never upload my full novel at one time. I usually just go chapter by chapter just because I'm typically not editing the full novel at once. I'm usually working on one chapter or even one scene. So I tend to upload just what I'm working on, and then export that back to Word. Or you could, Donna, use the Word integration to just be straight in Word. But if you're having issues, I would email hello@prowritingaid.com. Okay, I just renewed at a regular yearly price. Can I convert to lifetime with a discount? Pam, we can't stack discounts, so you can convert to lifetime. You can either buy lifetime with the discounted price I have right now, or if you go to your account page, there's like a pro rating for your lifetime subscription. So it just depends. You can have a look and see which is the better option, either the discount or the pro rating. It'll just kind of depend what you are. But unfortunately, we can't stack discounts on the same time. Okay, is it necessary to remain in the same tense? Yes and no. As I said, I think it really depends. Like within a fiction document, even if your whole novel is going to be past tense, there's going to be instances of present tense, like as people are talking in dialogue and things like that. So yes, you want to create an overall consistency for the narrative, but there's going to be nuance in there. Which is why I said before, you don't want to just highlight and put everything into one tense because it really does change. Do you have a good support system? I'm assuming you mean for ProWritingAid. I lead our support team, so I like to think so. Yeah, we have a bunch of different ways. So we have our email support where you can email hello@prowritingaid.com. We don't offer phone support because we're kind of distributed across all the world. So we don't offer phone support, but you can email in and get support from there. And then we're actually in January going to be launching both a community that you get support in, as well as weekly ProWritingAid 101s where you can come and learn more about the program itself too. So that is an option there as well. But for typical technical queries right now, just going to hello@ProWritingAid.com helps. As Alexa put in, you can also check out the blog. We've got a whole section on how to use it. And then our YouTube channel as well has a bunch of different videos on that too. How can we save the otter chat notes? I think somebody put that in there. And then Diana, your question on the Learning Academy. Yes, we've got YouTube, we've got the blog, and then we're going to be starting ProWritingAid 101s in January weekly, as well as I think we're going to do like an advanced techniques with ProWritingAid too. So if you're feeling like an expert and you want to try some more advanced features, that as well. But the best way, if you just go to our website and sign up for a mailing list, or just sign up for a free account. You can sign up for a free account to try, then you can go there. And Kim, I would be more than happy to do that. And I am just taking a screenshot of your email and we'll send that to you later. I saw someone ask a question in the chat about the discount. So I just want to show quickly how it works. So if you come to this discount page, you can click to buy now. And then I believe it defaults to yearly. So it'll show you like, this is like, it's per month billed yearly at I'm in the UK, so it says in pounds. But then you can switch to lifetime or monthly up here. So you can toggle between the different types of plans. Oh, it looks like it's not showing lifetime. I will update this and make it show lifetime, because it should show 40% off lifetime too. If you have already bought and it didn't apply your lifetime discount, send me a personal email or send an email to hello@ProWritingAid.com and just tag me. Just say, Hayley told me to email in, and I will refund to you so that you get that 40% off. But right after this, I'll fix the discount to make sure it shows for lifetime too. Great. Thank you all. I think that's everything. I think we got it all.
So much. That was great. I love this presentation. I mean, it's always helpful. I think one of the things for writers in general is that we're always working on improving our craft. And for me, like, even though I've seen you guys do different variations of this webinar multiple times, depending on where I am in my writing craft journey, I pick up different pieces of it and just continue to get better and better and better with the support like that. Also, did you move to the UK?
Yeah, I moved to the UK 2 years ago, almost at this point. ProWritingAid is headquartered in the UK, so I came over just because now I get to go to Spain and visit the team, our CEOs in Spain, so I get to go hang out with them more, which is a lot of fun for me.
That is so cool. I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous. Oh my gosh. Your email, I think she said use hello@ProWritingAid.com is the best place to go to make sure the full team sees it. But this was wonderful. Thank you all for your wonderful questions as well. Thank you for the discount. Any way that we can save money as writers is a good money. And I can't tell you enough how much a tool like this helps you, if nothing else, identify your weakest points in your writing so that you can work on improving as you go. But also, I saw someone mention that they're working with a publisher who does their copy editing for them. And the thing is, like, you want to make the process as seamless as possible for the publishing process. And as a publisher, I know I want to see manuscripts as tight as possible when they come into us, because it saves us time and money as we're doing the editing for our authors as well. And Ellen's asking about memoirs, and to my knowledge, use ProWritingAid for everything.
Yep. Yeah. Really quickly. Oh, there was a question about creative nonfiction. I just want to say I just updated the lifetime. So again, you can toggle here and then see the lifetime questions off. But for it's a huge discount for this is the biggest discount outside of Black Friday. So it's great. And it's just ProWritingAid.com/women in publishing with dashes between the words. For memoir, you can come in here and you can select general nonfiction under creative, and that's basically for memoir. There's also biography, which is also kind of in that, but general nonfiction, it's basically like general creative nonfiction or general creative kind of biography and things like that.
Okay,
great.
Cool. So Hayley gave you the direct link. You can also go through women, if it's easier to remember, womeninpublishingsummit.com/PWA. that link will take you to exactly the same page. So again, thank you so much. You guys have been such an incredible support to us throughout the years, and our sponsors help us keep the conference very reasonably priced, plus these free webinars with all this wonderful education each month. And I will have you know, for all of you who are science fiction, fantasy writers, I did reach out to Hayley last year because the conferences ran at the same time, and we have deconflicted
Yes.
so that everyone can attend both of those without trying to bounce back and forth between the two of them. So thank you so much for everything that you all do. And I hope everyone learned a lot about ProWritingAid today. And we will see Hayley again during the conference to answer more questions about ProWritingAid. So if you if you're not sure or need some time to think about it, you'll have your opportunity to speak with her again in March. So thanks, Hayley.
Thank you so much.
All right, we'll see you soon. Bye.
All right, bye.